Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach, and you may have been scrolling through a few of my videos and seen my first SuperCoach side of 2017. You might have clicked on that, seen no Dangerfield, no Gawn, and thinking, what the hell is this Shorty bloke doing? He's trying to hand me out SuperCoach advice. He's not even starting two of the guns of the competition. Of course, that is a different sort of decision, I suppose. A lot of people will probably lock them in, but there will definitely be some who bypass the very expensive Dangerfield and Gawn. So I thought I'd do a bit of a video about why I'm not going to be selecting them this season. It's always interesting discussing that number one prize player, often a midfielder, and recent time often been Gary Ablett Jr. Of course, he created plenty of discussion as years gone by, but it's always interesting because they are so expensive, but they're so expensive for a reason. I mean, they're arguably the best player in the competition at that time, certainly had the best season of last year, and do we pay up the big money for them? That's the question. There'll be people who just lock it in. They go bang Shaw, bang Dangerfield, bang Gawn. Don't even have to think about it. Lock them in. They're going to be guns. I don't have to worry about them for the rest of the season. And that's understandable and that's fair enough. But I'm going to give you my opinion and the reasons why I won't be going with those two guys in particular. And it isn't just a general rule where I just don't select the number one player because they're too expensive. It's not just simply that. It's more of a horses for courses things, and I'll tell you why. We'll start with Paddy Dangerfield. And for the record, I'm a Geelong supporter as well, so that catches a few by surprise also that I'm not starting with Paddy Dangerfield. But $716,000, a whopping price tag, and rightly so. He dominated, record number of Brownlow votes, took out the Brownlow, dominated inside 50s, kicked goals, racked up the ball inside, outside. He did the lot. Unbelievable season. And no doubt they returned unbelievable numbers, averaging 131, touching on the 132 mark, which is unheard of. He regularly went 170, 150 plus, had some enormous games. They were Ablett-esque. But is he Ablett? That's an interesting question. I think the reason Gary provided such a tough decision was that we were dealing with one of the all-time greats. And no doubt he'll go down as that. He'll be one of the superstars of all time, one would think. The question we've got asked with Dangerfield, is it as simple as that? Is he one of the best players to ever grace the field? Is he an absolute must-have? Is he just going to, again, pump out a 125-plus season? That's what we really got to think about. Now, of course, Ablett was regularly going enormous and he would be so tough to get a hold of throughout the season. And he had the runs on the board. Looking at Dangerfield, it's an enormous price tag and he had an unbelievable season. But in years gone by, he's only gone 115 plus, I think, on two other occasions and had some very good averages. Do I expect Dangerfield to be one of the best midfielders of the game again in SuperCoach in the AFL? Absolutely. You're going to want to have him, no doubt about that. But I believe we can get him at a cheaper price as the season wears on. I expect him to not drop off as such, but to replicate those numbers would be something special. I could not see him doing it. I honestly think he'll probably average around the 115 to low 120s, probably closer to that 120 mark. But the reason I won't be picking him is it's always that risk versus reward. It's always about that in SuperCoach. When we select a player, generally there's an element of risk with some, and then we look at the reward and we weigh those up. We do it with every guy. Some have a bit more risk, but the reward is too good to not go with. And others, it's just too risky, despite a somewhat tempting reward. When I look at Dangerfield, I see the reward. Everyone sees it. It's not hard to see at all. He'll average enormous numbers and be a great player for your SuperCoach side. The risk is that you're paying 700 grand plus on one player in your starting squad who no doubt had an unbelievable year, but I don't think he's Gary Ablett. The reason we picked Ablett time and time again, because he was a great of the game, not just a great for that season. He had the runs on the board and you just knew he was going to back it up. Do we know if Dangerfield's going to back it up? I'm not too sure. He probably will. He'll probably go 120, which is fantastic. But for 100k less, we can get Dan Hanbury. For 70k less, we can get the ever reliable Scott Pendlebury. Now, I just think when you're going starting sides, every dollar you can get is valuable, and every 50k you can get is valuable. I personally can't justify spending so much money on one player when I honestly believe we will be able to snap him up closer to the 600 mark throughout the season. Again, that risk versus reward. I'm prepared to take the risk that he'll throw in a poorer game earlier in the season. And by poorer, it only has to be 90 or 100. It only has to be back-to-back low triple figures for him to really plummet in price. And I think that's what I'm going to be banking on. No doubt he might have times where he goes 150 and it really hurts. But I'll probably have a Scott Pendlebury or a Dan Hanbury on my side who can probably do likewise, and I'll have a nice captaincy option. I just think the scope for him to drop, obviously, the bigger you get, the more chance you have of dropping in price. It's very hard to maintain that price. So I'll be going with the option of I'm prepared to take the risk to see how he goes in that first 5 to 6 weeks, and he'll drop in value. There's no doubt about that. It's just a matter of how much he hurts you along the way. You don't want to miss out when Dangerfield pumps out a 180. But I am prepared to take that risk because just going through my side at the moment, having that extra 70k plus an extra 70 odd K I think as well for Gawn in comparison to Goldstein, that just adds up to another premium. So I really do think it's worth it, at least with the structure of my team. Again, I'm not saying Dangerfield's going to drop off the radar and have a poor season. I think he'll have a fantastic season. But I do think he may well drop off maybe even 10 points, which would still probably put him as the number one midfielder. Definitely top 3 to 4, no doubt about that. Even if he dropped off to 115, he'd still be an absolute premium keeper. But gee, we could snap him up for a fantastic price. I think it's worth it, to be honest. I mean, obviously I've thought about it quite hard, and it is tough to really go past the number one player in the game. They're in the peak of their powers, a dominant force. But personally, I think the money that I can spend elsewhere, the likelihood that he'll drop, obviously I'll make him my number one priority. I'll be looking to get him in as soon as possible. But I certainly think it is absolutely possible that he will drop to around the 600 mark. He might hurt you on the odd occasion, but he isn't Ablett. I don't think we're going to see 130s again. I'd even doubt we'd see 125 plus over the course of the season. I do expect him to drop off and come back to the pack a little bit, still having a fantastic season. But I think spending money elsewhere, the amount he could drop, the chance to snap him up early, that's the option I'm going to be rolling with. We'll see over time whether that works in my favour or it absolutely burns me. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm prepared to take that risk, and that's what it's about. I mean, you make these decisions. Sometimes you get them wrong, sometimes you get them right, but I feel I have better odds of benefiting from that sort of strategy than going poorly. I'll still have some solid premiums in the midfield, but I'll be able to spend cash elsewhere and really beef up some of my other lines. So some people won't agree with that. A lot of people will just lock Dangerfield in, but personally I can't justify that price tag. Now, going along to Max Gawn, absolute unbelievable season once again. Averaged elite numbers, 118.5, and he just exploded. I mean, the back end of 2015 suggested he could do something like that, and he backed it up. He was unbelievable. Now, Gawn is a far easier option for me. I mean, Dangerfield, I ummed and ahed about, but to be honest, I never came close to selecting Gawn. He's 645,000, and I'm more than comfortable with putting my number one ruckman as Todd Goldstein at 588. I think Goldstein will average about the same, if not more, than Gawn, given he can get fully fit. That's a given that we've got to take into account. And Gawn just doesn't have the runs on the board at all. Now, Dangerfield, of course, has great numbers to back it up. Not as many great numbers in the 130s, and who does? But Gawn he has really come out of, well, not nowhere, but he really struggled with his body for some time, and he's only got that one premium status year, which was of course last year. Now I expect him to back it up, don't get me wrong. Both these guys I expect to have fantastic seasons, but Gawn, there's just too much risk for mine. $645,000 for a bloke who's only put together one full season of footy, and no doubt, can he back it up? That's a big question, I suppose. Can he back it up with his body and the point scoring? I believe he can certainly back it up with the point scoring. My concern is that if laying out $650K for a guy whose body isn't the most reliable, I just think it's somewhat risky. Now, I've locked in Goldstein, which makes it much easier. You know, if Goldstein was up around 650, you'd probably have to go with one of the two. Then you might make a bit more of a 50-50 call on them. But the fact that, like I said with Dangerfield, I can get 70K by going with Pendlebury, I can get close to 60K going with Goldstein, there's an extra 130 to 140,000 that I can quite easily, you know, throw elsewhere. Like, quite easily upgrade a mid-pricer, you know, lash out a bit more on some rookies if I need to at times when the rounds really get going, and it could be valuable over time. The main worry is definitely Gawn's body, I think. The fact that to pay that much money on a guy who isn't proven to not only score year to year, he's no Dean Cox, and historically the number one ruckman from year to year do change quite a bit, and Cox was somewhat of an exception. He dominated year after year. But of late, there certainly have been different ones, whether it be Jacobs or Goldstein, or whether Nick Nat comes right into the equation. Shane Mumford had an unbelievable season at one time as well. So, very, very tough to go past him, but I will be going past him mainly because of his body and the fact that I just think Goldstein is a fantastic opportunity to get him at a great price, and he's an absolute lock as far as I'm concerned. So that takes care of my ruck one, and well, you can see my team in that other video, but I've gone Martin at the moment, Stephen Martin. So they're my reasons. You might not agree with them. Some people definitely love to lock in the big guns early, and it's just a weight off their shoulders. They don't have to worry about them throughout the season. I understand that line of thinking, but I definitely reckon sometimes, depending on the player, it's worth taking the punt. It's worth saying, well, look, I'm going to bypass him. I reckon I can get him at a lower price. If I play my cards right, if I pick some good rookies, they'll appreciate and value nice and quickly. And then I can work a few trades, downgrade, upgrade. In the perfect world, Dangerfield can drop nicely to around 600 to 650. Your rookies go nicely. You could have them both in your side by around 7 or 8. Now, of course, over the first 7 rounds, there's going to be times where you go, oh my God, I wish I had Dangerfield. Oh, Jesus, Gawn's pumped out 160. That'll happen. But I feel like it's worth taking the gamble that they're not going to average enormous. And I think there's a little bit more risk given the price tag as well. Because as I say a lot, when you pay that sort of money, you want to be absolutely sold on it. They need to be proven performers, durable players. We're getting our money's worth. Now, obviously, Dangerfield, it's more about the fact that I think he could drop in value, certainly early in the season. Where Gawn, it's a bit more about the body and the lack of runs on the board. But equally, I think that risk versus reward and the trade-off of money for where I can use it elsewhere, I've definitely come to the decision that I think my side takes a better all-round look without them in my team. Certainly I have some reasonable premiums elsewhere. I've been able to work Pendlebury into the side, which I felt I needed to beef it up a little bit. So I've been able to work him in there alongside Hanbury and Treloar as well, and of course Fife and Beam. So I feel my midfield certainly can hold its own without a Dangerfield. And like I said, Goldstein can certainly hold the fort down without a Gawn, and we'll see how he goes throughout the season. Whether he can back it up and have an unbelievable season again, and can his body maintain that sort of form and the AFL intensity. So they're my thoughts on those guys. Sometimes it's difficult to get the point across when you're sort of saying why you're not going to pick superstars of the game. That can be difficult, but it is all down to that risk versus reward and where you can benefit from that decision elsewhere on your ground. Because of course we're going to want those two guys early in the season, as early as possible, but definitely it's a two-edged sword. I mean, you save 140k by not going with them at the start of the season, and then when you bring them in, and say Dangerfield's dropped 70k to around 650, Gawn's dropped around 50k to just under 600, well, you've saved another 150. You've saved about 300 grand. Now, that's a perfect world. It might come back to bite me on the arse, and I might, they might come out and average 130 for the first month or so. Then I'll really be wishing I didn't do this video. But I'm going to take the risk. I feel my side has a nice balance without having too much of a reliance on the price tag on a couple of guys, and I feel that I can use that cash pretty well elsewhere. So let me know your thoughts on that. It's always a talking point. It's recently been Ablett. Do we go with Gaz? Do we not? It's going to be Dangerfield this year. It's probably going to be Gawn. A lot of people are locking in Gawn and Goldstein or Gawn and Grundy quite confidently. So if you're going with that, let me know. If you disagree with this sort of opinion, then certainly get stuck into me as well. I mean, obviously, don't be too bad about it. Keep it G-rated, but certainly give me your thoughts. Let me know what you're going to approach that sort of decision with as well. Subscribe to the channel as always. Give the video a like. But yeah, certainly on a topic like this, it'd be great to get a little bit of discussion as well, because I think it's one that will certainly divide people. And at the end of the day, that's where you really, make your money. You either live or die by the sword, I suppose. These sort of decisions, which are clutch decisions to either pass a superstar, and if he fires, you're in trouble. But if he has a 80 early or a 94 in the first few weeks and he plummets, then all of a sudden you're a genius and you've really got the upper hand with that extra coin on, say, some of your opponents. So we live and die by these decisions, but we'll see how we go. So I'll chat to you guys soon, no doubt. Thanks for tuning in.